Hey my friends, it's Sunny Dawn Johnston, author of Invoking the Archangels, a 9-step process to heal your body, mind, and soul, and creator of Detox Your Life, a 44-day mind, body, spirit detox. Today I want to talk about how being a mom was not enough for me. I know that might be a topic that you look at and you go, what is that supposed to mean? And I think oftentimes this is a conversation people don't want to talk about, or they feel guilt or shame around actually feeling that way. I remember when my first son was born, and I never planned on having him. He was a surprise for sure at 18 years old. And so, at that time in my life, I really stepped up, and I was really a good, as far as taking care of and making sure his needs were met. I was a good mother in that way to him, even though people thought, oh my God, Sunny's gonna have a kid, like what on earth, I hope it lives through it, like for real, people were like, oh my God, she doesn't even know what she's doing. So I felt value in having him because I didn't have any value within myself. And so as a single mom for a few years, and then when I got married and had my husband, I didn't have my husband, that had been hard. When I got married and then we became a family, I started realizing I needed something else. And at the time, that something else was another child. And although I was scared to have another child because my first son had been was so full of it and so wild, I knew there was something in me that was calling to have another child. And so for the next 3 years, from the time my son was 4, we got married when he was 3, from the time he was 4 until he was 7, we tried to have another baby, and we lost 3 babies during those 3 years. And then finally, my second son was born. So within a period of 8 years, I had 5 pregnancies, 2 live births, 2 miscarriages, and 1 medical termination. And so certainly my physical body did not handle pregnancy very well. And so, but I was overjoyed to have another child and to have my second son, and he was easy and really, really enjoyed him. And, I would I was a stay-at-home mom, and so I would stay at home with the kids, which was the agreement my husband and I had. I didn't have a career. I quit school when I was 15, so I graduated. I got my diploma at 15, but I wasn't educated. I didn't have, any aspirations to be anything. I was just kind of going through life. So being a mom was my title, and that's who I was, and that was what I knew myself as. And as my kids started to get a little bit older, when my younger son was only about a year old, maybe a year and a half, and then my older son, who's 7.5 years older, so he was about 9, I started realizing that being a mom, as much as I loved aspects of it, it did not fulfill me. It was not, for me, it was not my end-all, be-all. It was not what I felt like was my mission in life or my purpose. And I remember when I had that awareness, like, I really felt like, you're supposed to just want to take care of them. And, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, which was a very religious society, but it was a very family-oriented environment, and that was one of the things I really actually appreciated and loved about the community, was so family-oriented. And I learned a lot about people, family first, and that needed to be the most important thing. And, in my experience, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was very loving and caretaking to us kids, and So my mind said, that's the way that you need to be, that's the right way to be. So you need to stay at home, you need to make those cookies, and you need to have, homemade dinners every night, and you need to eat at a certain time, and that's just the way you are a good mom. And yet there was this part of me that just didn't feel satisfied and didn't feel fulfilled and I felt almost like I was looking for my happiness through my kids, and it wasn't there. And not that I didn't love them, that I didn't adore them, that I didn't take care. It's nothing like that. It was just this internal feeling of, is this all? Like, that's what my whole life's gonna be, is just making sure the kids get to school and home and get their homework. Like, there has to be more than that to me. And I felt that way, but I pushed against it so strongly because my examples around me were, yeah, that is how it's supposed to be, Sonny. Yes, that is what a good mother does. Yes, you ought to feel fulfilled. You ought to feel like this is the most important job of your life. It should be enough for you. And it wasn't enough. And I didn't know what I needed. I just knew I felt empty. Or maybe empty isn't the best word, but certainly I did not feel like I was complete or fulfilled. And so around that time is when I started really kind of digging in to doing my own work. I recognized that I was a control freak. I recognized that my older son and I were just doing this constantly. We had constant battles, and it literally was wearing on me physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And I think that because of that, it caused me to literally search for something different, like reach for something else, because I couldn't just be home every day, all day with them. And my husband worked a lot, so I was the primary caregiver morning, noon, and night. And so I was reaching for something else, so I started taking a class to become a spiritual counselor. Really, I just took it just for myself, just to get me out of the house, because I didn't have any friends, I didn't do anything social, I was very much kind of a loner with my kids. And what I started to realize, and then have a lot of guilt around once I realized it, was, I don't want to be with them all the time. It wasn't that I didn't love them, but it was that there was something I wanted to do that was more than being a mom. And then I would have that thought, and I think, oh my God, Sonny, you can't think that way. That's like terrible. What a horrible person you are. A terrible mom you are thinking that. You're supposed to just be happy having kids. You barely lived through them. And I did that conflict. I had that conflict for a long time, until I went through that spiritual counseling program, and I discovered that there was this fire within me, this passion within me, this joy within me, this excitement within me in being able to help other people, and being able to help them with a lot of things I'd already gone through in my own life. And although I was young, I'd had a lot of life experience in a short amount of time, and I could be of service to people in a way that really filled me up like nothing else. And once I discovered that, then I realized that I was always meant to do that, and that I needed to have that feeling of not being fulfilled, so that I would reach for something more, because that's what I was meant to do. And I still had guilt around it at times, but what I've come to now, my kids are grown now, so they're almost 19 and 26, and I started doing this work when they were 2 and 10, is I've come to the realization that they chose me, and they knew their journey, and they knew the direction I would be going and how I could support them and not. I'm certain that I've done things to mess them up. I think that's part of what we do as parents. So they have something to work on. And that part of their journey was to share me with others. And part of my journey was to recognize that that was okay, that I didn't have to have that be my end-all, be-all, and that there wasn't anything wrong with me because I wanted more. And what I know about myself is I always want more. And I wasn't always that way. There was a time in my life where I could have cared less. I didn't have anything and I didn't really want anything, and I was okay in that place, and that's a sad place to be. So I have that drive and that want and that desire, and I recognize how ashamed I was for a long time that I wanted more than just the family and the kids and the roof over my head. And now I'm proud of it. I do want more. It wasn't enough for me. It's not to negate the gift that my kids are and the miraculous beings that they were in my life, and the incredible teachers that they were. It's just to say that's not all. It's just like I'm not only a daughter, I'm not only a sister, I'm not only a mother, I'm not only a wife, but I'm Sunny. I am me. And there was a part of me that needed to be fulfilled. So if you're in that situation, or if you've been in that situation and you still struggle with that feeling, I would really encourage you to maybe shift your perspective a bit so that you can see it from a different point of view. And honor yourself if you're feeling called to do something different, or in addition to, it's okay to do that. You can even get to a place now in my life. My husband and I are complete role reversals. So he worked all the time, he was in construction and he worked side jobs on the weekends, and I was a stay-at-home mom and I was there all the time. And then as I started developing my business, and I was trying to do all that still for a good 6, 8, 10 years, and then he started to run his own business, and the construction industry went down, 7, 8 years ago, it was down. And so we role reversed. He was the one that was home more. He was the one that started doing the shopping. He's the one that was spending the time with our son. Our other son was gone at that point. He'd already moved out, but and that worked. And he got to experience some of the things that I got to experience when they were younger. I always say he got the easier one because the other one was already gone, and that was a hard one, and I got stuck with him, gratefully now, but at the time I'd be like, dude, why'd you get the easy one? I got the hard one. Yet all of that, in all of these situations, he got to have that opportunity, and then I have the opportunity now to do my life's work, and he did his in the beginning part of his life. Not that this isn't his life's work, but that we've just role reversed, really, is what it's been. So if you've been in that experience, whether you have a partner or whether you don't, I just want to encourage you to not feel guilty or feel ashamed, especially if you have a family background that says this is the way it's supposed to be. I did that. Nobody put that on me. That was just my own perception. And the guilt that came along with that for a long time was hard to work through. So I hope this has helped you, given you some insight, some information, and some ways of maybe looking at it different. If you have anything you'd like to share with me, certainly please comment below. And if you feel like there was some value in it, share it with your friends, your colleagues, your any social media outlets, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Create peace, love, and light, my friends.